Alright lads, so we've gone ahead and done it. We beat the very hard guild quest, the Squad Zero and Human guild quest, only using a 1 out of 5 team / 2 out of 5. Ichigo is the only character that has dupes here. This was a pretty tough challenge, I will say. It does take quite a few resets. You are reliant on getting lucky on your RNG, inflicting status augments, but this team shows that you don't need max transcended characters to beat the very hard guild quest. That's kind of a thing going around right now. Players think you need to have 5 characters to beat this quest. You don't. They obviously make the quest a lot easier to beat, and those that have max transcended characters can get a higher score, but if you're just trying to beat the quest, it is going to be doable with non-max transcended characters, but at that point, it's also going to come down, depending on the week, if you have certain characters. And right now, when it comes to the very hard Squad Zero Human guild quest, Macy is almost a must-have. I've had a look around on different teams beating the very hard guild quest. Almost every team has been using Macy. Those that have beaten it without Macy have been relying on max transcended characters, right? If you have Macy though, if you have Ichigo, and even if you have Orihime, all 3 of these characters are helping to beat this particular quest, and depending on your transcendence, you might be able to replicate it. So let's explain how the team actually does work. So of course, Macy is going to be your best lead. The reason why she's really good right now, and the reason why she's always going to be good, is her damage output. She hits really hard, especially when you do inflict a status augment. She can apply both weakening and also paralysis. The paralysis with the tracking vortex, you're most likely going to inflict a status augment, and that's going to allow you to do more damage, up to 100%. Be careful though, the weakening only lasts around 2 seconds, so you have to make sure that when you do inflict the status augment, you have another strong attack to follow up, ideally your SA2 or SA3, to get like the max damage possible, because once that weakening wears off, you're then doing 90% less damage, right? 50% from the weakening effect, and the extra 40% from this particular skill. She's also a speed character. The final boss is a Squad Zero power character, so she makes quick work of the final boss, keep that in mind. But for those that are wondering on the build, we're using a Kamari, Capricorn Alpha, Fortification Pill, maximizing her SP as high as possible. When it comes to the links, I just went with the highest stats that I could potentially get. So I sorted by Spiritual Pressure, sorted by Recharge, and I just went with my top 3 best links. She's only special move level 1, so only level 10 SP. If you do get a 2 out of 5, that's going to greatly increase the chance of you beating this quest, since the guaranteed criticals definitely do go a long way. For bonus abilities, we went with damage to paralyzed enemies and also full stamina. Ichigo, very similar build, right? Exact same accessories. When it comes to the links, once more, sorting by spiritual pressure, but I also did want to give him that extra bit of strong attack damage just to increase his overall damage output. In his case, he's special move level 2 out of 5, so level 10 focus, level 10 SP. This really does again help here with full stamina and also damage to paralyzed enemies. Now, one thing you will notice is that Macy and also Ichigo are not immune to freeze. So the workaround with that, and right now, literally the best support in the entire game, someone that you can unironically use in every very hard guild quest, an MVP for guild quest right now, is surprisingly the mana version of Orihime. The reason for that is because of what she does offer on your team. In this case, we want to inflict paralysis, ideally from Macy, but Orihime can paralyze. That will then allow us to do more damage. In other guild quest weeks, it's going to stop the enemy in place, allowing your team to be safer. But alongside that, she has a boost and also barrier SA2, a multi-barrier SA2, so a 5-hit barrier for herself, a 3-hit barrier for your teammates, extra protection, but also more damage output since she does have a booster boost, which gives you 43% extra attack, focus, and also defense. But most importantly, the attack and focus part. But then it gets even better because she also does have shared complete status immunity. If she gets inflicted with a status augment, which will happen because there's a lot of status augments on the floor, she's then given the immunity to your teammates, and that essentially allows you to not need to give them bonus abilities so they can be immune. So we're able to give damage to paralyzed enemies on both Ichigo and also Macy. That's why this team is the best team, because Macy's the best lead, Ichigo is basically the best side, and then Orihime right now is the best support. With these 3 in combination, we're just barely able to beat the quest, so let's quickly demonstrate that. Alright then, so we're going to play it through fully, then we're going to go back, rewind, and then talk about what exactly we did do to beat this particular quest. Unfortunately, right from the get-go, it started off really bad. We got inflicted with the freeze. Usually you want to move forward, then double flash step, so you get right in the middle, and that kind of slowed down the run just a tad bit, but luckily we did actually apply the stat augment right from the get-go within our first initial attack, so Tendra was able to go down super quick, right? Again, with Macy, the weakening only does last around 2 seconds, so you want to make sure you have a strong attack 2 or 3 to follow up right when you inflict the status ailment. Going into Senjumaru though, we're going to use our Soul Bomb, then follow up with an SA2 or SA3. We actually use both in this case, and this is like the part where it gets a bit risky because we had no attack to follow up. At this point, I'm just really hoping for the best here. No one luckily got hit, and we're really hoping to apply status ailments, which luckily we did, but unfortunately it was actually Ichigo that inflicted a status ailment. So you're kind of working against your team here. If Ichigo inflicted a status ailment, while it's nice he does get an SP boost, it does kind of ruin the run a tad bit because Macy is your main damage dealer. Luckily though, I guess, that boss was the speed boss where, you know, Ichigo does do more damage, so it wasn't all too bad. And then in this case, Ichibe is unironically the easiest boss here, but we have to get to him with like 15 seconds to spare. We inflicted status ailment, we had a strong attack to follow up. I don't think it was an SA3, I think it was an SA1, so not really ideal, but even then, it does do enough damage. We take down Ichibe, and with that, we had just 4 seconds to spare. Again, that's with basically a non-max transcended team, right? It is possible, but it does come down to the character you own. And again, it did take a bit of reset. If you look here, it took us around 50 minutes just to get this one score. In a user situation, I won't do that, but I wanted to do it to showcase that it is possible, but you are going to have to get a bit lucky. On the bright side, though, you only have to do it once per phase, so I do not need to touch Guild Quest again, right? So let's go slowly and then quickly break down exactly what we did do here. So again, example, to not get frozen right away, you'll see here, I move forward, then I double flash step. I didn't move forward enough, so I kind of flash stepped right into like the center of the freeze pool, and that ultimately meant I got frozen. At this point, Ichigo and also Orihime kind of sitting at the back, so she doesn't have a chance to get frozen yet, and that's why it does take a few seconds. We kind of waste time here. Ideally, you want to stand in the middle. That's kind of the safe zone, but it is very hard to see, right? Where Tenjiro is standing is the safe zone. Unfortunately, with the graphics for freeze, it's very hard to see. It kind of looks like the entire map is frozen. It's not, but majority is. Keep that in mind. So luckily though, the shields definitely did help us here. We didn't get hit, right? If we get hit, it's game over. So we use our SA2, luckily inflict the status ailment. The weakening has been procced, so we use our SA3 right away, right? And that goes through the first boss relatively quick. I believe Ichigo's even using strong attacks, so we're kind of doing good here, right? At this point, this really isn't a position you want to be in. We have no strong attacks ready, right? Lucky though, I can actually dodge. Ichigo and Orihime do have the shields. Orihime damage doesn't matter, keep that in mind. Unfortunately, Ichigo looks to do attack against a random boss. That's why you also want to make sure you have a strong attack ready when you go into the next phase. So our NPCs don't waste time doing random strong attacks to random mobs that don't really matter, right? Luckily though, it was only its SA1. So in this case, we luckily stalled enough. Ichigo then used an SA2 to take down a few mobs. I think it hit Chad though. I think it did hit Chad. Let's quickly check. So in this case, Ichigo is about to use an SA2. It does hit Chad, so we didn't waste a strong attack there. Now in this case, I'm going to use my SA2. Unfortunately, I think it does actually apply the weakening. It might have actually been Orihime that inflicted a status ailment. I'm not too sure, but luckily we did inflict a status ailment. We have the SP boost. Unfortunately, we didn't have any strong attacks personally to follow up on the weakening that did last a few seconds. So this part in particular was on the slower side, but it's kind of fine. We then had to use an extra few strong attacks. Ideally, do want to finish up this phase relatively quick. Ichigo makes quick work of the chat though. Using SA2, it takes him out. At this point, we have a few strong attacks coming back at the same time, all at the same time. The cooldown in between phase does give us enough time to, have those strong attacks come back. We use our Soul Bomb. It applies the SP boost. It applies the weakened defense. You want to keep in mind too, you also have to manage your SP boost here. There were times where I went into the Senjumaru phase. I used my Soul Bomb when the SP boost was active, and then the boost ends up going away after a few seconds. And at that point, I'm then doing damage to Senjumaru and not doing enough damage. So sometimes, maybe if possible, it's good to wait a few seconds for that SP boost to wear off. Then you can use your Soul Bomb. Luckily for me though, in this case, I didn't have an SP boost. So once we do use our Soul Bomb, we have 10 seconds of really high damage, right? So we use our Soul Bomb, we then use our SA2, follow up with the SA3. Ichigo also did damage at the same time, going into Kugo with 35 seconds to spare. Again, once more, a very scary place to be in right now. We have no strong attacks that we can possibly use. So we're really relying on here that Ichigo doesn't get caught in attack, and the barriers that Orihime is giving us really is helping us out here. So we then just flash step around, we use our SA2. Not gonna lie, kind of just freeballed that. Had no idea what the boss was. It's kind of hard to see with the freeze pulls. Luckily, it did actually hit the Kugo. And again, unfortunately, we didn't paralyze, but Ichigo did inflict the status when he got his SP boost, which in this case might have been for the best because, again, the boss is actually a speed character. Ichigo does do more damage against him. Absolutely nuke with that SA2 right there. And at this point, we're just spamming all the strong attacks, right? We don't want to save attacks here. All we need going into the final boss is one SA2 and one SA3. And I hope that we do inflict the status augment. So if we have like 7 seconds left, 5 seconds left, it's still possible against Ichibei. So here we go. Boss is about to spawn in. We have an SA2 ready. SA3 is coming back. I want to possibly try and position myself to group up most of the mobs here. We use our SA2. We luckily inflicted a status augment right from the get-go. We followed up with the SA3. As you can see there, I think we're doing like 700k damage on each attack, which is really good. And at that point, all we have to do is finish up with the SA1. A few extra hits from the Vortex is able to basically weaken the boss. And now we just have to use one strong attack. Luckily for us, though, we had time for the SA1. We had time for the SA2. And with that, we were able to beat this quest. Again, it does take a lot of resets. You have to get lucky with the paralysis. Macy has a high damage output, but she has an even higher damage output when you're damaging enemies that are weakened and also paralyzed. Weakening only lasts 2 seconds, so sometimes it does come down to inflicting a status augment and then having an extra attack to follow up. With that said, though, we're now over on Core Server. Core Server does have an active Guild Quest community. We're having a look at some of the other players, other members of our community, what team they use to potentially beat this quest. Teams that I can't potentially replicate, right? So in this case, this lad went ahead and used a 2 out of 5 Macy with a max transcended Ichigo and a max transcended Jushiro. And even though Macy was the only person doing damage here, they were still able to beat it. I can see the vision with this team. I have seen a lot of people use Ichigo as a side. Main reason is for their immunity and also Vortex protection. And then obviously Jushiro's case, he's providing the boost and also the barrier. So this team, it makes sense. Very surprised he beat it, but that just goes to show how good Macy is. She in and of itself can technically solo the quest if you have the, good sides to back it up. This lad here, another example, Exo Star, 1 out of 5 Macy, a 5-5 Ichigo, 5-5 Aizen. Same reasoning. Ichigo for the Vortex and the immunity, and then Aizen for the barrier and also boost. This lad had a 2 out of 5 Macy, a 2 out of 5 Bargo, and also a booster, and they cleared with 20 seconds to spare, so that's actually quite good. If you have a 2-5 Macy, 2-5 Bargo, definitely worth giving it a shot. Considering that they had 20 seconds to spare, I think you can get away with having some bad RNG on the status augment procs. Nobunaga actually went ahead and used a 5 out of 5 Hearts Human Killer. Right, so never thought we'd see the day we use her in Guild Quest, but again, it does work. Again, Macy is doing most of the carrying. Macy's only 1-5 here in this case, though, but the Retsu can make work, right? She can do some decent damage. It might help you out. Any extra damage that you can get on top of Macy with a good support character like, again, Orihime should do the job. Saigo went ahead and used a 1 out of 5 Macy, a 1 out of 5 Quincy Ichigo, and also a Shinji. Shinji's here for the Vortex and also the booster boost, and they beat it with 5 seconds to spare. The lad G, using this particular team, 1 out of 5 Macy, 4 out of 5 Ichigo, and a booster. So not a single max transcended character, but they were lucky enough to actually beat this quest. Again, mainly comes down to the fact that Macy does have attribute and also killer advantage. When this guild quest comes around, if the final boss's technique, it's probably not going to be doable. But hopefully by that point, we have someone else to go alongside with Macy, or maybe even a new better character to use as a main. This lad here, can't pronounce his name, I apologize, but he did use a 2-5 Macy, 2-5 E-Burn. First E-Burn that was seen here, and also a 2-5 Aizen was able to just clear with 1 second to spare. Dr. Jones having a very similar team to mine, the exact same team. The only difference is that Ichigo is now 1-5 and Macy is 2-5, but you can see there they had 20 seconds to spare. So if you could potentially have the same team, but have a 2-5 Macy or a 2-5 Ichigo, a 2-5 Macy would be more ideal here. She is your main damage dealer, right? And then shout out to Simino. He looks to be the only lad that I've seen that beat this quest without a Macy, but it did come at the fact that he had to use a 4-5 Ichigo, a 1-5 Orihime, and then a 3 out of 5 Squad 0 killer Aizen. Aizen's good in this quest too. Keep that in mind. Definitely worth using his side if you have him. So it definitely looks like it is beatable without Macy, but again, you're going to have some dupes into your characters, right? A 4-5 Ichigo, a 3 out of 5 Aizen. If you potentially have Aizen 5 out of 5, or this Ichigo 5 out of 5, max transcended, then at that point, it's also going to be beatable, but a lot easier to beat, because it looks like this like literally came down to the last seconds. Maybe though, in the future, when this guild quest does come back, it might be even easier, because right now the final boss being a power character really isn't helping our Ichigo all too much. If the final boss is ever speed, or if the fourth boss is ever speed, then Ichigo is going to have a much easier time being able to do more damage to beat this quest a lot easier. So with that said, lads, that was the video for today, just showing that it is definitely beatable without max transcendent characters. Unfortunately though, again, in this case, one of the few examples, but unfortunately is an example, is that, yeah, it comes down to mainly having one character, that being Macy. She's limited. I understand that everyone's going to have her. If you can't beat the quest now because you don't don't own her. That's unfortunate, but it will get easier as we do go by in the months, right? Maybe it was a bit too soon for Caleb to split up these particular killers and also add range attack damage ×2. There's not that many characters right now that you can use, and that's the reason why it's so limited on your options. But it's not the first time we've seen this, and again, it will get easier over time, right? Anyway, this was an absolute struggle to go through beating with this team. The video, I think, has gone long enough, but I do like to show examples, and we will continue doing this weekly, showcasing other teams that people have been using, teams that I can't potentially replicate, right? Hope you guys enjoyed the video, though. I see you guys next time. Take care, and peace.